2020. I got approached by the SwiftUI team. So yeah, if you liked our podcast that we made together, please subscribe to the channel.
So welcome to the MayankShow podcast, Natalia, and I would like my viewers to know more about you. So go ahead and introduce yourself to my audience.
So my name is Natalia. I live in New Zealand, and I'm an iOS developer at the moment in a New Zealand company part-time, and part-time I also work on my own projects. I have a website, neilcollison.com, where I have an iOS development blog. Also recently wrote a book about integrating SwiftUI into UIKit. And yeah, I like sharing everything I learn in my day-to-day job with the community. And yeah, I like reading other people's blog posts and listening to development podcasts. So yeah, I'm really grateful that we have such a great community.
You have been making a lot of contributions to the iOS community, Natalia. So why don't we start from the scratch, from where you started getting into the technology sector and how you got started with that? So would you like to throw some light on that part?
Yes, of course. So I actually studied linguistics at uni many years ago. And then I wanted to apply for a master's in computational linguistics. So that's how I started to learn to program, to prepare my application. I started by learning algorithms and data structures, first in Java and Python, but actually ended up working for a company and I didn't go to uni anymore. So I was helping out with different things that needed to be done. And I had to learn on the job. So I was doing a bit of technical support for a macOS client for inspecting HTTP requests and testing APIs. So the client was in Objective-C back then and Swift as well, but the extensions were in JavaScript. So by doing technical support, I was also helping with those extensions. So I had to learn JavaScript, and then I pivoted to doing a bit of front-end development in React. After that, I decided to do a bootcamp just to sort of get more structured knowledge about web development. So I did a bootcamp in Ruby on Rails. But after the bootcamp, I decided to learn iOS development just because I was exploring what was available and looking where I could work next, and started learning Swift, and I really liked it. So I thought that was the right language for me because of the structure, because it's strictly typed, and I felt like it was the right thing to do.
So you told me that you started off with JavaScript, right? And you left uni in between when you got the job, your very first job, I believe. So how come you started learning JavaScript in the first place? Did you learn that while your university, while you were studying at the university, or you started learning that when you joined that new job?
Yes, I had to learn it when I joined the job. When I joined, I only knew how to write algorithms within Java and Python.
I see. So you learned
That's
that part before even getting into the tech industry, right?
yes.
So what used to be your go-to resource at that point of time to learn anything new in tech?
It was a long time ago. So I think it was a website, which just text-based website about Java.
Mhm.
I learned Java, and then I think Python. I mostly learned by going to lectures at uni without being officially like
Very-
uh, enrolled because they let me do that. So that was really helpful. Yeah, and when I joined the company, I think there was some service or website I subscribed to learn JavaScript, but it was all just starting out. Like the resources we have now, they weren't available back then.
Okay. And like in today's time, you would find that people are having complaints about not getting enough resources to learn something. Maybe they want to learn iOS development and whatnot. And there is a lot of content out there. Like, what would be your advice to people who want to learn any new technology, not just iOS development, in today's time? What should be their approach to go ahead with that?
I think from my point of view, it's nice to try a few different services, websites, YouTube channels and find the approach that works for you.
Mhm.
Just because someone else recommended this particular website doesn't mean it's going to be right for you, because we all learn in different ways. That's
Right.
what I did. I just tried different courses. So I can recommend that, but there are a lot of other resources, of course.
Awesome. And when you made this transition, coming from JavaScript, moving to the bootcamp of Ruby on Rails, and then eventually to Swift, what changed for you in the later part? Like after Ruby on Rails, why did you choose to go ahead with Swift?
I think it's the language that I preferred, and also the fact that I can build a product on my own.
Uh-huh.
Because I think being a web developer, you need a team probably, unless you're just building a website, because you need some kind of service.
Right.
So it's much harder to start something on your own. While with app development, you can sort of choose to build something small by yourself and put it out there and already have users. So I think
Right.
that was really appealing to me. And I like the community as well. I felt it was much easier to find resources on the topic, and it was much more constrained rather than web development. There is a lot. It's difficult to choose the right framework. So it was like just too much, I think, especially for a beginner.
Yeah.
While iOS, we didn't even have SwiftUI back then. So it was like very clear what I needed to learn. So it was very scoped.
I see. And how did you come across the community? Like, is that the Twitter iOS community or some other community?
Yes, it was Twitter and just on the web, like the website, everything was
Okay.
available, and yeah, on the point. Yes, I think I remember using Stanford course. I think they put it out for free, so I remember I used that as well. So that was very helpful. Yeah, and so I was learning Swift and building small apps to put on the App Store for practice, and also applying for jobs at the same time. Applied for a few jobs in Europe, got a couple of offers, but the visa process was sort of dragging along, and we ended up in New Zealand because my partner found a job here, and it was super quick with visas for both of us. So we moved, and I started looking for work here already on site, and it was quite easy. I was probably lucky that the right opportunity was open when I arrived. So I found a job as an intermediate developer. It was full stack and iOS at the same time. So it was kind of perfect that I could try different things and learn by working with other people, and also do some iOS development in a real company on a big project.
I see. And what is the tech scene in New Zealand? Because I'm not sure about others, but me personally, I haven't heard a lot about New Zealand as far as tech side is concerned. So would you like to tell us more about how's the tech doing in New Zealand, so to say?
I don't think it's any different from other countries.
Mhm.
Obviously, there are a lot of tech companies, a lot of startups. Maybe it's more focused in the North Island, in the bigger cities like Wellington and Auckland, but in Christchurch, might be harder to find like jobs in tech in smaller towns,
I
because
see.
there aren't that many people in New Zealand. There's 5 million in the entire country. So, and most of the population is concentrated in the North Island. And yeah, I was living in Christchurch, so it's the third largest city in New Zealand
Okay.
when I found that first job. So it was still possible to find something. There weren't many iOS jobs available
Hmm. Back
back
then?
then. So yes, back then. So I was lucky that there was some iOS development in Swift as well going on. So that was great. There was a lot, like it was about 5 years ago, and at least in Christchurch, there were a lot of multi-platform development. People were trying to write one code base for both iOS and Android.
Hmm.
So I was lucky that I found a company that was doing native iOS development. Yeah, but I think it changed now. There are a lot more iOS positions, a lot more companies are doing native development now, and a lot of companies are hiring remotely. I think it's probably now the norm that you can work remotely, like by living in New Zealand, and just go to the office every now and then, maybe a few times a week, or even more rarely if you want. Like I'm working now in a New Zealand company as an iOS developer, and I'm working fully remotely. I go to meet my team once a quarter.
Once in a quarter is a doable thing according to me,
Yes,
because somebody asks you to come once in a week, that's even a lot, right? Some companies here in India are transitioning back to from remote work to asking you to come to at least 2 days a week to the office, which doesn't make sense, because if you're asking somebody to come 2 days a week, then if that person lives far away from that city, then they have to come back to that city to live back again, right? Otherwise they will not be able to make it to 2 days a week and anything like that. But yeah, great to know about what has been opted by companies there at New Zealand. Yeah.
yes. I think this shift happened after COVID. Maybe more people realized that we can do our work remotely. Why go back to what it was? Let's try to find a new way that works for everyone. And
Mhm.
like if I live close to the office, I would be fine going to the office a few times a week, but I don't want to be pinned to a location because of that. I think working remotely requires a shift in sort of how we work for sure, and probably takes time to adapt as well if the team used to work together in like one office.
Yeah.
I think there are some positives about working all together in one office. I really like going meeting my team and working together for a few days. I think we can do a lot of things, and we try to structure our work in a way that if there's something that would benefit from us being all together in one room, let's do that when we meet. Otherwise, let's structure our work in a way that works while we're all remote. Because we have some team members in Auckland, some team members in Wellington, some in Christchurch. I'm in Wanaka at the moment, so we're all in different locations.
I see.
But we kind of try to work around that.
So how do you manage to bring a team culture while working remotely? Like, is that something that bothers the team, or is it like an innate thing that comes in?
So we try to be sort of engaged and talk about not just work when we're on video calls, but just how we spend our weekends and like what's going on in our lives. And I think meeting at least once a quarter helps as well, just so we see each other in person every now and then.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yes, that was my first job in New Zealand. I worked there for about a year. But I started feeling like I wanted to focus more on just iOS development, at least for some time, so
Mhm.
that I can learn more and sort of develop a deeper knowledge of iOS development and Swift, and SwiftUI was just coming out, so I was excited to try it out, but didn't have time to do it while I was working full time. So I thought maybe I should leave for a bit and just try working on my own projects. And if it doesn't work out, then I can just go back to working in a company. But at least I would have like um, earn, learn something new and earn some new knowledge in iOS development this way. So I started building a product. It was a WebSocket client, firstly on iPad, but I wanted to move it to macOS as well eventually. So I started building it in SwiftUI because that was just the year when it came out. And there were a lot of unknowns because the framework was very fresh and no one knew how to use it properly. So
Right.
I was just learning everything on the go. And I decided to start a blog just to share what I learned so that other people can use it. And that helped me understand things better as well, because I feel like when I need to explain something to others, it requires me to understand it even better. And it worked out pretty well. I had a lot of readers and a lot of great feedback about my articles. Yeah, so it was a great idea to start the blog. So I was sharing my learnings on my blog, and I was also sharing things on Twitter. Back then, it was like the platform where iOS developers were sharing what they were learning. And my account was growing, my blog was growing, and after WWDC 2020, I got approached by the SwiftUI team because they saw my blog, they saw my Twitter post, and they said that it looked like I was really passionate about the SwiftUI framework, and they were wondering if I wanted to come and work with them, to help them develop the framework. It sounded like an amazing opportunity, of course. So I said yes, and then I had to apply officially
Okay.
through their website and start the interview process. That lasted a while, but in the end, I got the job.
Even before joining Apple, you were doing iOS development, right? So what changes did you see very significantly in your maybe professional style of not just even working, but also your knowledge in iOS development. How does that change for you? How did that change for you?
I think the main thing I noticed after already leaving Apple is that I tend to rely less on hacks, because at first I was like, oh, I can find this workaround and just make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Now I tend to think more like, if I can't achieve it with the official APIs, I try to redesign what I want to do, because
Okay.
it's going to break with the next version. So it's not future proof to build like an app based on
Right.
hacks. And maybe I should just work with the framework and just use it in a way that was designed. And if I can't achieve something that I want exactly, maybe I should just design it in a slightly different way. But this way it will be clean, it will work, and will not break with the next release. And I can focus on developing the product rather than testing and re-implementing it again and again.
Mm-hmm. And what interests you more in the development side? Like few of us have, more inclination towards having a beautiful UI. Some people are into UI a lot. Some people are more intrigued by building a feature, maybe a new feature that is more complex or more challenging. So they get a joy in building such features. Some people are into optimization and performance. They are deeply into how can we, make the performance great and whatnot. So what has been your interest into iOS development? Is that these specifics of the app, or maybe the whole application itself? Like it can be anything.
I think I like focusing on the UI, and I
Hmm.
like building something that's simple to use. So I really
Okay.
like to focus on that and put features in a way where I would expect them to be. And if something gets too clunky or a bit confusing to use, I think it's better to not add all of those features, not at the same time, and spend more time thinking how they should be added. So I really like empathize with the users, because I used many apps that confused me, and when the UI confuses me, I get really stressed.
Yeah.
So I can't like enjoy the product. So I'm trying to build my apps in a way that people can enjoy them and they're simple and intuitive to use.
Right, right, right. So how did that connect with your work at Apple? Like, because I believe working as an engineer in SwiftUI team, you must not be directly communicating with or working on something that is going to change the UI directly. Maybe indirectly it does, right? Obviously, indirectly it does. But how did you resonate with that part of work? Like, did that made more interested, like more interesting to you, or how was the feeling at that point?
Yeah, it was very different, because I had to sort of have a mental shift from my customers being the users of the app, to my customers being the developers who build the
Right.
apps for users. So it was different. And actually, during the interview process, the team told me that you have to be prepared that while working on SwiftUI, you are not building beautiful apps, you're building this framework that others use to build beautiful apps. Like, would you be okay with that? And obviously, I thought about that and I said, yes, I would be okay with that, because I help developers to build better apps in an easier way. And hopefully, they can focus more on their products rather than trying to understand the framework. That's why we also were trying really hard to make Swift APIs simple to use and sort of do the right thing by default.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anything that you can tell our viewers about Swift UI that is not that cliche to know, but you have seen that firsthand, and you would like to share more about that? Is there anything about Swift UI that you would like to share in that way?
I can't think of like one concrete thing. I think it's more like I have an advice, maybe. They
Yeah.
don't have to follow it, but um, like don't try to sort of shape it in a way that's like trying to repeat something that you could build in UI kit, or trying to replicate exactly something like you have in your imagination, but um, use what the framework provides and customize it in a way that's customizable by the public APIs,
Okay.
instead of like trying to hack it together. Just because I think it's going to be more enjoyable and more robust for the future releases. And obviously, the framework is lacking some features still, right? It's still in development.
Right.
So just try to think, can you work around that? Can you maybe not have this exact UI yet, while the features are still in development, and just come back to it next year and maybe just add it for this like next version. For example, let's say you wanted to have bottom sheets a few years ago, but you couldn't do them in SwiftUI. Like, could you design your app that a regular sheet maybe works for now, and then next year you can add a bottom sheet when it comes into public API, but you only add it for a subset of users who update the app? Because I think iOS users tend to update their OS systems pretty fast. So you will probably still be covering like the biggest percentage of the users by just supporting the latest version. You can still support the older version, just not have that particular piece of UI there. And I feel like that's where you don't not fighting the framework and not getting upset that it doesn't work how you want it, but just focus more on your users and on the product you're building.
I see. And what advice do you have for people who would like to apply to Apple? Since I know that you just mentioned what was your process with Apple, you didn't apply in the first place. You were asked if you were interested and then you applied. But what are those two, three things that one should take care of while applying and preparing for the rounds at Apple? What would you recommend on that?
I think it's important to be visible in the community. Like, just share what you learn. You don't have to be the best of the best developers in the world, because I think we can all like share something we know.
Is
So
it
I
like,
think that
how does that point connect with it? Like, apart from they being approaching you, how does that part connect with Apple?
because they will research you when they see your application, right? When it lands, they will look like who you are. And I think it will give you a lot of points if they know that you're giving talks, you're writing blogs. Like, choose what works for you, but try to give share something with the community and just put your like knowledge out there. I think will definitely increase your chances. I think so. I'm not in the hiring team, but that's the feeling. That's the feeling I got.
Right.
Maybe contribute to open source projects, or find things that you enjoy and that work for you. That doesn't have to be a blog. Doesn't have to be like a conference talk. It can be something else. Maybe just build your own projects as well, so you have something to show what you've done so far. That again, so that like your work is visible, because we often work in companies where we can't share exactly what we do, and it makes it hard to just showcase your experience this way.
So what type of application should we build? Like, there are applications like to do calculator apps as well. I don't really think that you would recommend going to that path. So what type of application should somebody build so that they can show it when they are interviewing with a certain company, be it Apple or any other?
So my approach for just finding ideas is, what kind of app would I need to use in just my daily life? For example, like foraging for fruit in autumn. I would like to build an app that helps us like save where the apple trees are, around our house. So I built that, and it's like you build it for yourself first. That's my approach. Make it nice, and then you put it out there, and maybe other people have similar needs to you. If it's not something you want to make money off to survive, but something you want to make to learn and to share with others who might have similar needs.
Right. That's interesting. I think with this approach, anyone can come along with a good idea, right? Maybe that idea is not for the masses, but at least there would be someone who would resonate with that, right? At least you are there, the very first customer of that application. All
Yes,
right.
exactly.
Talking about your blog, what is your process of writing a blog, Natalia? Because everyone has their own way of approaching a blog, right? For me personally, when I think of creating a blog, I'm a video person first. So I used to create videos before. So almost take the same approach with which I create my videos. I try to simplify the topic as if I will watch this video, I will be able to learn this. So I try to go step by step, explaining each step with some example, and then I complete the whole story of from where we started and where we ended. Do you take some other approach than this, or is your approach somewhat similar to that while
It
writing a blog?
sounds really similar. Yeah, sounds really similar to my approach. I normally try to reconstitute the steps that I took to learn something. For example, I want to research a new feature, or just figured something out that wasn't in the documentation. I want to share it. So I would try to just reconstitute what was my approach, like what were the steps in me understanding this feature, and I just tried to write them down.
Okay. And when you select a topic for your blog, do you come up with those topics, based on the experience with which you are working, or do you come up with topics after doing a research or something like that? Like your process of selecting a topic for writing a blog, how does that go?
It's usually something I either worked with or came across. Sometimes I expand a bit more. For example, like I recently wrote a post about hierarchical background colors in SwiftUI
Mm-hmm.
in this new iOS release, and it was because I was just trying to add a background color, and I just looked in Xcode autocomplete, and I saw that I could actually like do dot secondary on background now. So I was like, oh, this seems new. What happened? Why is it new? What changed? So I went to look in the docs and in the div and jump to definition in Xcode just to understand what changed.
Nice.
Once I understood why it was new and what was added, I just said, okay, I'll just document it and write a blog post about it so that I remember it later and so that others can learn as well.
Makes sense. Do you still stuck with certain things to learn or maybe figure out? I believe you do. But yeah, let me ask you.
Yes, of course.
So how do you figure that out? Like, what is your way to figure out a certain, not just a bug or maybe something, but if you come across a certain maybe new topic in iOS development that you want to work on. Let's say you haven't worked on ARKit before and you want to approach learning that so that you can build an application. So what approach do you take for that? Do you go along with Apple Doc, or what's the first thing that you do to learn something new?
Yeah, I would probably start with the documentation first. Then I would look for some other complementary information like blog posts or YouTube videos
Mhm.
to see more how people actually use it in examples. Then I'll try to come up with a simple example on my own so that I can reproduce it, but in an isolated environment. So I just create a fresh project so that it's not interfering with anything else. And I just create a very simple isolated example of that. And once it's working, I can already think into bringing that example into like the real app. That's usually what's working for me.
Nice. And have you tinkered around with Vision OS yet, or are you looking forward to?
Not much yet. We tried applying for the developer kit, but unfortunately didn't get any
Oh,
reply back.
I see.
Yeah, so, and it's not going to be available in New Zealand for a while, probably.
Right.
So I find it hard to motivate myself to work on it if I can only see it in the simulator. So, no,
Yeah,
yeah, not
it's
really
not
yet.
that interesting to just do it on simulator, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I would want to try it on my own as well. It would be really risky to release something that you haven't tried on a real device, I think.
Makes sense. It becomes quite imaginary to build something like that. Yeah. All right. Going along with the story, I think we were at Apple, so we can continue from there.
Yes, so I joined Apple after many rounds of the interview and many months of waiting. And it was really great. And like I was surprised how everyone was so like supportive and happy to help, even though they were so busy and the work was so intense at the same time. I got a lot of autonomy straight away. That was a bit terrifying at first, but
Hmm.
I enjoyed it in the end. It's like, okay, these are the features you'll be working on. Good luck. It wasn't exactly like that. They would say like, okay, we'll support you along the way, obviously. But yeah, I could work on features on my own. That was really great. I got to plan them myself, um, talk to other teams about how we're going to make it work, because obviously SwiftUI is built on top of other Apple frameworks
Right.
because it's a high-level framework. So I would need to work closely with the foundation team. For example, I was working on text APIs in SwiftUI, and I was integrating attributed string. That foundation team rewrote the NS attributed string into a Swift attributed string. So I had to work closely with them to integrate that into text APIs in SwiftUI. It was a lot of learning, a lot of fast learning as well, because everything was very new to me. It
Nice.
was really exciting at the same time. And I think the best part was sharing all of that at WWDC, because
Yeah,
when you work at Apple, you work for a year without anyone seeing your work. And
makes
then
sense.
finally it's released. It's a really great feeling.
How much time does it take to build a single API? Just to give us a gist of, suppose like you were working on the attributed string API, right? So how much time roughly takes for an engineer to complete a certain feature? Is there a deadline, a strict deadline to that?
Normally, the deadline is the OS release,
I
but if it doesn't work out in a good way, it could probably be just transferred to next year. So it really depends on the feature, and like some features would take a few months, like the text API. I could complete it within one development cycle, but some features take years. It really depends. Yeah,
I
a lot of time is sort of put into designing this like API proposals and discussing them, making sure they're right, because once they're in the framework, you can't change them anymore. You have to support them forever. But it also depends a lot on other teams. If like the groundwork they're doing is ready to be used. Yes, a lot of
I
factors influence that.
I see. All right. How did it go along with Apple after that?
So I stayed there for a year and a few months, like I think a year and 6 months. And I was really enjoying everything, apart from the fact that I couldn't work on my personal project anymore. Everything else was really great, and I felt like I was really contributing to the iOS community by working on SwiftUI. But in the end, they wanted me to move to the US and work in person with them in Cupertino, because all of the team was going to be in person again. But I decided that it would be best for me to stay in New Zealand in the end. So I left Apple because of that.
How complex is it for somebody from New Zealand to move to US and then start their life up from there? Is it too complex, or is it like a more of a practical decision that this is the reason why I should stick here and not there?
So Apple offer a lot of support in relocation. So I think they would take a lot of complexity away maybe from me, but it would still require for me to a lot of work, obviously, go to the embassy. And then because I came to New Zealand 5 years ago on a work visa, and it took a long time to get permanent residency. Once I got it, I didn't know if I wanted to start this process again. So I left Apple and I went back to just working on my own project because I really missed that. So I wanted to do that for a while again. And I went back to writing blog posts as well. I had so much to share because I couldn't share anything while working on SwiftUI. So I had so many ideas and was just writing a lot of posts. And I thought maybe it's time that I wrote a book, because I have so many ideas and I want to share so much. And maybe I can do it in a more structured way, more like a guide for people to follow. So I looked at what was not covered as maybe broadly as other topics were, because there was a lot of resources for people starting to learn SwiftUI or UIKit. But I noticed there was not much about how you can actually integrate those frameworks, because many people who start learning SwiftUI now, they already have some products in
like there's no one resource that gives you all of it, right? You can find out these things through multiple resources, but there's no one book that does that, and I think your book does that.
Yes, that's what I tried to do, just to cover that sort of topic for people who want to start with SwiftUI,
right?
But they already have projects and they want to just continue working on them, because I think it's easier to start fresh with SwiftUI with a fresh project. A bit harder maybe to start integrating it into an existing one, because you just have to learn maybe a few different things and how it sort of integrates with UIKit as well. But I wanted people to know that you can do that. It's possible. You can work with this new framework while not abandoning or completely rewriting your existing projects. That's why I wanted to write that book. That gives people sort of a guide to follow and hopefully inspire them to try SwiftUI more, even if they already have an app in UIKit.
Nice. So you mentioned that after leaving Apple, you started working on your own applications, and along with that, you started working on the book. So how did you used to manage your week? Because when we work by our own, we are not working with a company. I don't know if that's true for you or not, but it really get messed up when it comes to managing your schedule for the whole day or maybe for the whole week. So did that happen to you first of all? And if that happened to you, then how did you manage your whole week? How did you used to manage your work?
That definitely happened to me. When I was writing the book, I was just writing it for maybe 2.5 months without
Mm-hmm.
doing anything else, without going outside almost. It was winter
Oh,
in New Zealand, so it was okay because the weather was really bad. But yeah, I was just like, okay, I have this project, I need to finish it. And I felt so tired after it was done. So I couldn't like work on anything maybe for a couple of weeks. And then I
my.
started looking into building an app. So I wasn't very good at managing that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I still found it hard even after like I realized that no, I actually have to have a better structure that so that I don't burn out after one project.
So if you
Uh,
had if you had to revisit and change it today, somewhat about how did you approach doing this all, what change would you make to your process?
I would probably set up working hours. So I work from like
Ah,
let's say from 8 to 6, and that's it. And then I can do something else. And even if
yeah,
I switch to working still something related to my company, it's still not that particular thing. So yeah, I switched the focus for a bit and come with fresh ideas the next day. So to follow more of a like regular work schedule
I see.
would probably be better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so once I finished it, there were a lot of people who were interested in it, so that was really great to see. And yeah, it was really satisfying to have something like a real guide for people, not just blog posts, because they're great, but um, they're not like structured in a way that you can follow them one after the other. So I decided to build an app next, and so that we came up with this idea together with my partner about the drawing app, but it's not like a traditional drawing app.
Okay.
So it's called Extra. It's now on the App Store on iPad and iPhone because it's sort of yeah, it creates shapes, abstract shapes that you can overlay together to
Yeah.
create artworks. So you need to use a bit of your imagination while doing that.
Okay. So the person
Um,
needs to be an artist already. That can use the application. Is that the case?
Uh, not really. Like we designed it in a way that you don't have to be an artist at all, and even if you just put shapes on top of the other by switching colors, it still looks nice.
I
Even if
see.
it doesn't have a concrete object, it's like abstract. It still looks quite nice. So you can create, for example, backgrounds for your computer or for your phone this way. But sometimes you can come up with actually shapes that turn out
Yeah.
to be flowers or something else, like whatever you see. And now we have more artists using it
Mhm.
in a very interesting way. They come up with characters that are just like totally unique and not like they don't know what they are, but it looks like a character. So we had like a few artists share it with us, which is like really cool.
Awesome. Awesome. So your main customer base for that application is those artists that are using it, right? Or is there any other category of people that are using it?
So yeah, there are artists and there are some people who just try like to play
If
around
you
with
wanna-
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned that if you want to make your own wallpaper, then you can play around with that and create one. So do consider downloading the app, guys. I'll link it below. All right. Yeah. So your application, this was your very first application, or have you released any other application before this one?
So after I left Apple, it was the first one I worked on. Uh, Before I joined Apple, I was working on this tool Xtor for WebSocket connections.
Yeah, you told us.
And when I joined Apple, my partner took over and he was working on that. So it was available on the App Store for a while. But we took it down just a few months ago because we didn't have time to maintain it. And a lot changed
Okay.
because I was using a lot of navigation APIs that changed. And
Yeah.
it wasn't good enough to be on the App Store. And we didn't have time to update it. So we took it down. But we have a lot of people reaching out to us asking for it again. So we think that we're going to bring it back. It's just, yeah, trying to find time to do everything we want to do is hard, but it's definitely on the list of things to approach next.
What's your motivation to create or even build and release an application? Is that completely uh, self, self-satisfactory objective that you want to build an application and publish that, or is it that you want to also publish it for the customers that are going to use it? Like, what is your main objective with that, mostly?
It's definitely both. We want to write apps that we would use ourselves, just because we think we will find problems better this way and understand the needs of our users better. So we don't want to build an application for the customer base we don't understand at all. So it would be like an app for developers or like people who like to draw but are not really artists, like our extra app. But of course, we also want to build it for the customers, right? Because we're putting it out there, putting it on the app store, we're charging a bit for it. So we want it to be good for other people too.
Right. So do you put any extra efforts after releasing the application to make sure that it reaches to the right audience? Or do you just release it and leave it to Apple, the App Store, that, the App Store will take care of it now?
Yeah, we definitely do put work. We're not very good at marketing, I think. We're trying to do what we can.
Because we are engineers first, and then it comes to marketing. I get that.
Yes, for sure. We have Instagram channel and Twitter. We try to share updates, and some people found us this way. Obviously, not like as many as could have so far, but yeah, we'll keep working on that. Keep working. On that.
So you, like, your primary approach to go about it is to use your Instagram handle, or is there any other approach as well? I'm just trying to understand the process that you take after releasing an application to make sure that it reaches to maximum number of people.
So you would try multiple platforms. Instagram seems to work the best for this particular app.
Okay.
We tried YouTube as well. YouTube Shorts worked well. A lot of people saw them. The videos were a bit less popular. Yeah, we're just trying to find the right channel for that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And then you talked about, when we were talking before, you joined a company as well as a freelancer. So that's
I'm employed but part-time. I got approached by a recruiter. I think it was this year, probably February, so a few months ago, but almost a year ago. She was looking for an iOS developer to join that company. Okay. And it sounded like very good. They work with SwiftUI. They would consider me working remotely. They're well known in New Zealand, so they have like a good reputation in New Zealand. So I thought, okay, I haven't really thought that I would join another company, at least for a bit, after I left Apple, because I wanted to focus on my own things.
Right.
But this offer seemed like really, really good. So I thought, okay, I'll interview with them, and if they like me and I like them, why not? Awesome. So in the end, we agreed that I could do it part-time, so I can still work on my things. So I work 4 days a week instead of 5. And they let me work remotely completely because their offices are in 3 major cities, but I live in a small town. So I would need to relocate if I wanted to go to the office. So they were okay with me working remotely. So that worked out in the end, and the tasks for iOS developers seem really interesting. And I don't really work with SwiftUI that much there at the moment because our team is mostly focusing on customer engagement.
Okay.
So I work a lot with push notifications. That's what I did recently.
Nice.
But I think it's nice because it's like a new area for me that I haven't really worked that much with before. So that's always good to learn something new.
That's nice. And what is your next thing that you want to do? Like maybe something that you're already doing and trying to grow that. What's that? What is your plan now with your career, so to say?
I think next thing I want to focus on is write more books because I really enjoyed it, and people like it, and I have a lot of people who are purchasing it. So I have a lot more ideas that I want to put into books.
I'm one of those purchasers, just to tell you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I have a lot more ideas I want to write about. So I'm going to really be focusing on finding time to do that.
That's great.
And a lot of apps as well we want to build. We're now working on another app which is approaching the beta stage, I think, is for walking. And hopefully I can share more a bit later once it's more ready to be beta tested. And then we obviously want to bring our WebSocket client back to the App Store because we have people inquiring about that. So that's the plan for probably next year or two.
Nice. You have a lot of stuff to do, and I think it's all about time when you will be completing that, and we will be able to see what's up with the projects that you are currently working on. Definitely, since I have got the taste of the books that you write, then I will be looking forward to the new book that you create after this one. Any last advice, last piece of advice for the people who are watching this podcast?
Yeah, sure. From a personal point of view, just don't be scared to share what you're learning with the community. Like, probably repeating myself again, but I think it's really, really important and will really help in your career. If you have a blog, a podcast, a book, what works for you, right? It can be apps, open source projects, frameworks, like I said, libraries. Yeah, just find what you're passionate about and try to share as much of your work as possible with the community. And don't think that you have to be senior or like some kind of superstar to do that. We can learn from everyone all the time. Like we can learn from juniors, we can work from intermediates, we can work from seniors. Everyone knows something that others don't know. So please don't hesitate to share it.
And I think the highlight for me was like, if you are public out there and if you are creating some value in the community, then you keep getting the opportunities. As I can, learn as a takeaway from your story. If you are doing the right work and if you're doing it consistently, not just for the sake of doing it for one day or 2 days, then things work out for you in a long term. And with that said, I think the people who are watching and listening to this podcast would really get some valuable things to take away from here. And I hope you guys you like this podcast and you find some value in the same. If you do liked it and you would like to watch more podcasts, then first of all, do consider following Natalia on Twitter. I'll just link her Twitter in the description box. Along with that, her book, which is available and it has been updated, as I mentioned. Apart from that, again, her applications as well, which we talked about in few minutes ago. So I'll link all of that in the description box down below. Do follow her, and yeah, you can also follow us if you like what we do.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a great pleasure to talk to you.
I hope you like the podcast.
Yeah, I think it was really great. Yeah, it was, and like got me thinking about a lot of things that I normally don't maybe think about. I have to put into words.
That was the intention, and if that happened, then I'm really happy with that. You can also ask our viewers to subscribe to the channel if they are liking what they just watched.
So, yeah, if you liked our podcast that we made together, please subscribe to the channel to see more content.